So what are you doing at the moment?
I'm popping out my chat.
I
Yep.
no updates then on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'll just copy and paste this over to LinkedIn.
I haven't seen it there yet. Let's do a refresh on that. How's everybody going? I see we've got Debbie's joined us already. Who else is on here? Danny's joined us. How are you, Danny?
Hey guys, sorry about the audio challenge there right at the beginning. I do that almost every time, right?
You do what?
To have the damn video starts playing, or live stream starts playing in the background, blast right by the speaker. You can't hit the mute button on the video until it starts playing, which is kind of a pain.
Thank you, John. My wife just booked me in for a bed trim. It's definitely getting a bit out of control again. So time for another a bed check once I go down to the big city on the weekend.
Yeah, you are looking a little bit like a I don't know, a lumberjack or something like that. They have those in New Zealand.
Yeah. Has Patty joined us yet? I can't see Patty there. Rennis, Gary, how are you? Good to see you guys on here joining us today. Norm's there. How's Norm? Norm, you seem to be having a lot of action online. I'm seeing you quite a bit, which is good to see, as in you're doing a lot of posts, a lot of content, which is great.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Really good to see.
We had a hurricane come through here recently that came right up and I guess there's another one behind it. We're at that time of year where they come up for the ocean and right up underneath the bottom of Florida and into the Gulf of Mexico. And then they always look at us on the west coast of Florida, and then they just skirt us and head over and blast the shit out of New Orleans and Galveston and those other poor bastards that get them every time.
Living in a condo, does it affect you at all, though, if anything like that comes through? Because I assume you're out of it, but the building doesn't shake or anything?
No, I'm on the 20th floor of a 21-story building, which isn't super tall, and it was built less than 5 years ago, so it's all, got the latest building codes, everything. I mean, every now and then some of the stuff on the balcony will blow around a little bit, but yeah, it hasn't been too bad. And this one really didn't bring much wind. It was just, steady rain. This whole month has just been rain every day, which as a new motorcycle owner is really pissing me off.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, it started drying out here. The days are getting longer and drier, and that means that I assume the weather systems up there are starting to go into your autumn, right?
Yeah, hopefully soon. I would imagine the back of your head is probably getting about well done by now, right?
So yeah. He's talking about this fire. This fire here.
Oh, you're literally like on a broiler right now.
Look how hot that looks. It's just ridiculous. And it's like hitting me right in the back, and I was can't move out of its way. I only lit it to burn some rubbish. It's not that we need the heat and stuff, just burn off some cardboard and whatnot. But man, it is cool.
So two things of bad timing. One is rebooting your computer just for a phone call, which I've done here recently. The other would be loading a bunch of stuff in the fireplace just before you're going to get on this live call.
Yeah, so true. Did you post this out on LinkedIn, or did you forget to post? I can't see anything there on LinkedIn about it.
Hang on. No, it's out there. Yeah.
Huh.
They
don't put that into my notifications.
I tagged at NZ365 guy, just copied it from Twitter, and that's not what you are on LinkedIn.
That's it. Yeah. Let's have a look here. I'll just jump onto your profile then, and
I just did a quick copy paste. So you can't get at NZ365 guy on LinkedIn?
On LinkedIn, no. I have it in my URL string, but it doesn't work like that. It still takes it to be shared.
Interesting. So a little bit of an update. This last week since we last talked has been pretty much nonstop work for me in a couple of things that I started. So I can only blame myself. One was the ISV connected thing, which I'm still working on that. And I've had now 3 of what I'm calling success series interviews with the top performing ISVs at Microsoft that Toby Bauer said, these are the folks that are the top performing ones.
Yep.
And they're all kind of lukewarm on the program. So I'm not sure what it says when the guy who's the leader of the ISV says, here's our top performing ISVs.
Yeah.
And I talk to them and they're like, it's getting there. We expected more. Not the response you wanted to hear from your top performers.
Yeah, exactly.
Where's the company? I mean, I'd say probably the one who sounds like the closest to being happy was Ed Grant with Solgari.
Yep.
But he still mentioned some challenges that he's seeing too. And you would think that your top performing ISVs would be over the moon and have nothing other than wonderful things to say. But all 3 of them were like, it's getting there.
Interesting.
But
we've known this for a while, right?
What's that?
We've known this for a while. Now we're just collecting evidence that other people are struggling as well.
Yeah, but these people are the ones that Microsoft said are the best performing ISVs. I mean, this isn't like random ISV I went out and grabbed who's just not doing great. I mean, I went straight to Microsoft and said, give me a half a dozen of the top performing ISVs in the program.
Yeah.
So I can sing their praises, and Toby gives me these names and I'm talking to them and they're all like, eh. So yeah, definitely we've known there's challenges in the program, but I definitely had thought, and I know that, Ed Grant and some of these other guys are certainly doing fine, but I think that has more to do with their solution than anything Microsoft's doing for them.
Yeah.
It seems like a huge disconnect in co-sell with the Microsoft sellers.
Yeah.
This is something that, and this is for SIs as well, the Microsoft sellers, Gabriella Schuster has talked ad nauseum about the challenge they have with getting I kind of equated it to like this battleship, right? And because there's thousands of these Microsoft sellers, right?
Yeah.
They're like a battleship of people, and a message starts at one end of the ship and takes forever to get all the way to the other end, if it ever even does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they have such a disconnected sales force from the product, and certainly from ISV solutions, by and large. I mean, you got to get real lucky, grab the right seller with the right opportunity who has a desperate need for whatever the hell it is you're trying to sell, to get into a deal, have him see it close, and suddenly have a light bulb go off in his head that, hey, that worked well, let's go repeat that motion. That alone is difficult enough to get to happen, much less, that's not a scalable motion. That's one guy. Yeah, that's not even scalable. You got to do that 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do about that problem. It's just a matter of sheer size,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think for ISVs, for so many years, and this is one good thing about the the rev share, for so many years, sellers looked at ISVs as slowing down a deal. So they weren't going to bring you into anything. I'm gonna go close my deal first. I'll get into buy dynamics first. Once I got my thing signed, sealed, and delivered, then I'll mention you have this awesome solution that they could have used all along.
Yeah.
But yeah. And his whole idea with the 20%, that extra 10, which activates co-sell, really is a little kitty of money to give to those co-sellers, in addition to a huge quota retirement that they get from selling ISV solutions, just to try and give them some motivation to actually bring ISVs in with them, instead of, you guys wait on the sideline, don't say anything till I close this deal.
Yeah.
But that's a hard habit to break.
What I'm impressed with is Microsoft's ability to incentivize, though, their sellers to drive outcomes. As in the way they have their scorecard, it's obviously effective because they're one of the biggest selling organizations on earth, right? Yeah. If you look at the numbers, So for all of their, sometimes I feel like they lack the marketing. Hi, Prashant. Sometimes I wonder, they've just got such an amazing machine that if they throw enough energy behind it or enough sellers behind it, it continues to chug and grow.
I think they're definitely very good at teeing off on their key objectives. When you think of, when you look at Azure coming out of basically nowhere, up against Amazon, 800-pound gorilla, and Satya saying Azure's our future and teeing everybody on that Azure motion, they're very successful.
Yeah.
Any of these big motions of their own that they want to go, but bringing ISVs into deals, that's never going to be as important as any of their other things.
Yeah.
I don't imagine it's probably even shows up on a scorecard of, there's some incentives there, but I don't think it's a scorecard metric for them to sell ISV solutions. And why would it be? What do they care? That's our problem, not theirs,
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. When they're properly focused and pointed, they can accomplish an awful lot. I don't know that they'll ever get properly focused and pointed on ISVs to the degree we'd like to see them.
Yeah, so true. Did you see Microsoft's new advertising strategy? I put the link in the chat there. Hey, Paul, welcome from Canada. I don't know if you saw that link there. It just came up an hour ago on my LinkedIn feed. Did you see that in the chat?
I do.
Their new advertising, James Phillips showing his ass off in the
Yeah, his ass looks just as flat as mine.
So it's interesting. He's going to record his Ignite video. I don't know if everybody is registered yet, but I'll chuck this up in the actually, that's probably not the right page I want to be on. Let's go back one. I'll just get the right link for you. Here it is. I'll just chuck this in the chat. But in 2 weeks, this event's coming up, which James Phillips is leading, the Microsoft Biz Application launch event. And I'm wondering whether, he'll drop the new name, etc. For what's replacing DataFlex. But if you haven't signed up, folks, it's probably worthwhile you jumping on that link for that Microsoft Business Application launch event. They seem to be, it's interesting where these are morphed from, because they used to be what were called airlifts back in the day, but they've now become a polished marketing tool for them rather than just an insider's view to the world. But this should be an interesting, we're definitely due for what's new and what's coming.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to hear that if you overlaid James's video from this event over top of the one from the last launch event, which was what, 6 months ago?
Mm-hmm.
I think 90% of that will be redundant.
When you say redundant, you mean it's already been said?
It seems like every time I watch James, I get this real strong sense of deja vu.
Rinse and repeat.
Yep, that I've heard this message before, and I get it. New people coming in, got to go rehash a bunch of stuff, but I expect 10% of his presentation to be about actually new stuff, and 90% to be rehash as he does every time, which is I'm sure necessary, but as someone who watches all that stuff, it does get kind of old,
Yeah.
I'm sure they've got.
Interesting is the logo used in this, which I'm seeing more and more. There's no official thing that this is the Power Platform logo, but definitely seeing this more.
The blue square stacked up thing?
Starting to square up to a rounded corner in the darker blue.
Yeah, maybe that's the new propeller image. Maybe they're going to get away from the propeller direction and go into more of a stacked and layered conversation.
Yeah.
Or is that the PowerApps logo?
That's what I'm wondering if it's not the PowerApps, but the Power Platform logo.
Yeah, it definitely is looking like something stacked over top of one another, and I think they've played that propeller story out. It's time for something new, right?
Yeah. There's
Maybe
another little link, a little somebody, Adam Hallbeck, has put up there around when's Microsoft going to change the name again from Dataflex CDS Lite? What is it going to be? Oh, Heisenberg there with Project Oakdale. Like, are you serious? So I don't know. Maybe that event coming up and at the end of this or the start of next month is going to be where Microsoft do reveal what that's going to be. But at the end of the day, I don't know if many people watching at the moment have started trying it out, which is basically CDS inside Teams, because it's in private, it's in public beta, right?
I'm not sure where it's at out there. We were in the private preview, which the guy who's running that set up a recurring call every day at noon.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I sat in for about way too frequent. I sat in for about the first week, and then it just was way too, things don't move fast enough for that kind of cadence. And once I kind of got out of the habit of logging in and checking it out, I got distracted by another shiny object. So I think it's going to be cool. I mean, you know what? They want to make Teams the desktop for the world. And so everything's got to come from Teams. And if it's not in Teams, I was talking to, both Solgari, who is, this new idea or this new concept on the ISV side is to be a 3 cloud player, right?
So you're talking about M365, Power Platform, and Azure, right? Those the
Correct.
three.
The three clouds. And if you're an ISV solution that brings in all 3 clouds, you're going to get, happy status for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And Teams is going to be one of the ways that a lot of these folks are going to get that 3rd cloud, because there's a lot of solutions out there now that run on Dynamics that utilize some Azure.
Yeah.
But their involvement with the Office stack has maybe just been the Outlook integration that came with Dynamics. I didn't really have much. So Teams, I think it's going to potentially open a door for ISVs to be able to say, hey, I'm a 3 cloud player.
Yeah.
A little easier than some of the others.
What? It's once again nomenclature that Microsoft uses internally that really doesn't mean much out in the market. Because what I've heard is that the competitors, people like Salesforce, people like Oracle, that type of thing, are going, don't get sucked into Microsoft, because I'll be selling you 1 cloud and then they'll try and sell you 3 more or 2 more, right? And they're like, we just got a single cloud. Like, why do you need all these clouds? So they're actually using it as a bit of FUD as well. The competitors back the other way.
Which is ironic, because Salesforce, I think, predates Microsoft on a multi-cloud strategy.
Marketing cloud,
Sales cloud, service cloud. So they were pitching a multi-cloud strategy before, also. But if I'm a customer, that message resonates with me. I don't need any more vendors than I need. I'm going to look at cost and convenience.
Yeah.
And I can log into one Azure Active Directory and deal with my whole organization. Do I need to bring in Salesforce? Do I need to bring in Amazon? Do I need to bring in these other things that don't necessarily talk or communicate? There's a beauty for a customer in simplifying their life. I know we know there's plenty of IT folks out there that intentionally are trying to keep things complicated. Because they need it for their job, but Joe businessman out there, who can solve the most of my problems?
Yeah,
I'm going to start there, and then I'll go outside for things that they can't solve. And Microsoft's doing a pretty good job of covering lots of bases.
Yeah, valid.
Of course, a lot of their base covering. I had 2 conversations last week with a customer. One was sent by Microsoft to me as a lead, and another one just came independently to me, looking at Dynamics or looking at our solutions and asking about marketing, that they wanted to do some simple email campaigns, nothing robust. One of them was a nonprofit, the other one was smaller business. They want to be able to do some basic email campaigns.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I just couldn't recommend Dynamics for Marketing for simple and basic email campaigns. It's just such a big hammer
Yeah.
for that fundamental need. I mean, frankly, Click Dimensions is too big. I mean,
Wow.
these people were MailChimp constant contact prospects all day long.
Yep. Yep.
That's really where, I mean, that's where I sent them to. I hate to give up the business, especially this with everything that's going on out there in the business world today. You don't want to walk away from anything, but
Mm-mm.
I just couldn't with a straight face sell them. So, I mean, that's been, I think, while Microsoft's covering lots of bases, some of these bases are covering with some pretty damn big hammers.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's interesting because it was never, the original intent wasn't to go that large, right? As in selling it as a massive
It started out as business edition.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
With Keyshawn. We were, we were working with him when they very first were coming out with this stuff around his whole business edition plan. And it was
Yeah.
Keyshawn Chitan at the time is now ironically at Salesforce.
Yeah.
They had that big partnership with Adobe for marketing. So let's not build anything that's going to upset Adobe at the time.
Yeah.
Over time though, we kind of saw the Adobe partnership kind of fizzled. It never really caught traction.
I really thought Microsoft was going to buy Adobe. I thought it was just a lining up, but perhaps Adobe's too big a business in its own right nowadays.
Yeah, and it feels like other than the marketing area, there's not a lot of overlap there. I mean, that would be a pretty additive acquisition for Microsoft.
Yeah.
Unlike buying Salesforce, which would just really be trying to go after a customer base. But there's not a lot of competing products, Adobe with Microsoft stuff other than the marketing side. So it seems like it would make sense, but I don't know. It seems like they got a lot on their plate too.
Yeah. Yeah. I see we got a message from Ken this week. What was he saying? He sent some numbers through around how their industry is absolutely popping in the
auto industry or something.
Yeah, the auto industry going nuts. He sent us some information there, and I mean he's obviously in the. He's big into virtual reality, isn't he? Big into VR. He talks a lot about, and particularly with the HoloLens and where that's going for the sector he's in. But yeah, the auto industry is growing massive,
He sends us all this stuff to talk about today, and then he's not on.
Yeah.
I'm kind of, it's funny. I say I'm kind of surprised about that, but recently bought a new car myself a month ago. So, and frankly, didn't get a very good deal on it. Part of the interesting thing with a lot of industries, not just automotive, is that their supply is dried up because of virus, factories being shut down. So there's a lot of stuff that's in short supply, and cars are one of them.
Yeah.
And I know when I went in, unless it was just salesman bullshit, but I think I could read through it. When I went in to get the car recently, guys like, we're not going to get any more. It doesn't even look like there's going to be a model year 2021.
No way.
They're going to skip right from 2020 to 2022.
Wow.
There's a window where they launch the new model year. Usually it comes out before the old one has finished, and the factories have been shut down for pretty much that whole time. So they're talking about potentially skipping an entire model year for a car.
Yeah.
And looking at their lot slowly dwindle down, not being replenished. So they're definitely not in the mood to make any deals. So it may be that they're doing well at the moment because of people realizing that, hey, if I don't buy a car now, I might not get one for a while.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of a temporary phenomenon. I don't think people get virus fears and think, oh, I got to go buy a car.
No, I think what I took from it is that people are not so keen on public transport at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And so they'd much rather be in their own bubble, their own vehicle, control the air, or feel like around them. I was quite surprised because, in New Zealand, we were in the market for a car as well. We expected there'd be a massive price drop. It hasn't happened. And here's the other thing. Property has gone through the roof over COVID in New Zealand. It's just like on a straight up, and yeah, like in New Zealand, we have a thing called like the local region, the governing body values your property, and that's how they make you pay property taxes.
Yep.
And generally, your house sells for around that valuation as a rule. And in New Zealand, it's selling consistently $50,000 to $100,000 over that at the moment. And this is, everyone was expecting the market to crash and, you know, housing prices to go into recession. And we've had the opposite.
You know, and in New Zealand, say, for example, if as a US citizen, if I decided, wow, New Zealand's pretty safe, I'm going to go buy a house and move there, I couldn't even do that right now.
Do you know that since COVID's happened, we've had over 250,000 Americans try to move to New Zealand that all been denied?
Yeah.
As in to repatriate over here type thing? I think that's the right word, actually, to immigrate to New Zealand and live. But yeah, they can't get in it because at the moment only Kiwis are allowed to move home. Kiwis being New Zealanders.
When you talk about the houses selling like crazy, you guys are selling them all to each other.
Yeah. Norm says something, you know, he says, hey, Scott, how are you? I see he's saying in Canada, people got extra money though. So that was one of the other byproducts. The credit card company, the whatever Visa, MasterCard came out for New Zealand, and something like $6 billion of credit card debt was paid off by people when we were all in lockdown because nobody could buy anything.
Yeah,
so
right. Might as well use it.
Crazy, eh?
Interesting. It you know, who could have predicted the side effects of something like this? And every day I'm hearing something that has me going, really? I didn't see that coming. You know, I didn't expect that. A lot of them you can look at and you can go, yeah, now that I think about it, that's kind of obvious. You know, it makes sense. But some of them, like why the houses in New Zealand are so much more expensive when the only people that can buy them is your neighbor.
Exactly.
It's kind of beyond me.
Well, here's the other thing. Because only Kiwis or New Zealanders can return to New Zealand, what's happened is that there's over 1 million New Zealanders live around the world outside New Zealand. And so what's happening, it's seen as a safe bet to go home, if you like. And so what's happening is a lot of wealthy, affluent Kiwis that have lived in other parts of the world are returning home en masse because it's safe. And so that's something that's definitely driving up prices.
Well, just like you and Megan, a couple of wealthy Kiwis in the UK that decided to come back home. Bring your bags of gold back home.
We just didn't know that COVID was coming. It was,
right.
when we did it.
Actually, it's good timing for you.
Oh, amazing timing. Yeah, so it was November last year we moved home. It's coming up a year, not long now, so crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. The I don't know, the other weird thing that's I don't know if you looked at the S&P 500, they rejected Tesla coming into the S&P 500 even though the numbers meet the requirements. Because Tesla's just gone through the roof in its market cap and whatnot. And one of the things is that they believe it's a bubble, that's happening with Tesla at the moment. And one of the phenomena that's happening here in New Zealand, I don't know if this is overseas as well, is that heaps of people have got into the stock market with these stock market apps, that you can trade, $1,000 buys rather than a $20,000 buy type thing that would be traditionally being done. And there's like four different apps now in New Zealand allowing you to do, if you like, micro stock transactions. When I say micro, I'm not talking about penny stocks. I'm talking about, investing $1,000 here, 1,000 here, 2,000 here, that type of thing, which are not considered big by the stock market's measurements. But what's happened is so many people have done it. Stock prices on everything are all rising. And of course,
$1,000 doesn't feel like it would impact the market, but if you suddenly opened up via simple to use apps, a huge part of the population to play in the game they never could play in before, and they all threw their $1,000 around. I could do something.
Oh, John owes me a beer. Look at that. He said that when I mentioned back on the show a while back that Zoom was going to go crazy, and he bought stocks, and he goes, he owes me a beer now. It's done well. I should have bought stocks in it. I
So
haven't set
speaking of,
myself up to buy stocks here in New Zealand properly yet. Like in Australia, I've got a full stock trading account there. And I've got one in the UK as well, but I've not done it here, and I need to get that set back up so I can transact in New Zealand.
you can still transact in those, right?
My other ones, yeah.
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 The mentioning Zoom, based on I think our call last week, where you mentioned Calendly coming out with a Teams integration in beta.
Yeah, which I got,
So
by the way.
So I went and signed up for Calendly to check it out, and I pestered the crap out of them until they gave me the approved me for the program.
Yep.
Which took, a couple of emails, so it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
So so I'm trying that out, for my meeting stuff, because I'd rather be using Teams
Same.
today. I mean, before it was no question Zoom, absolutely, but most of the people that I'm engaged with, as are you, are Microsoft
100%.
focused customers or people that are, and I don't, I like you have had several people say, why are we using Zoom? Well, we're using Zoom because I'm able to automate setting up the meeting time, and that's the only one I could do it with.
Yeah.
I reached out to the provider I was using, which was Acuity.
Yep.
Which I actually like better than Zoom because it was more.
No,
more
better than Calendly, you mean?
better than Calendly. Calendly, I think, is much bigger, but Calendly's been feels like it's been kind of dumbed down for every user. And Acuity was a little more robust for, if you wanted to do more with it. It had some other, it had some other capabilities. So I was really hoping.
Like what?
I don't know. I just, the way I was able to do the embed. I had video background on my embed. I was able to do a lot. I had a lot of full control over the CSS, things that Joe user wouldn't want to mess with, but I did, and so I reached out to them and said, hey, we're going to move to Calendly because of the Teams integration, unless you're going to tell me it's imminent. And they said, we have no plans for a Teams integration, not even on our roadmap, not even a discussion. I'm thinking,
wow.
Are you
What
guys
rock are they
living
lying
under?
under?
I mean, what do we got? Like 40 million users of Teams now and growing. I mean, it's how can you ignore that platform?
Yeah.
As a calendar integration company, how can you just ignore that platform? I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, I think that Calendly is going to have them. If you want to buy some stock, once they take that thing out of beta,
honestly,
it's the only place you can get it.
It has transformed my life over the last 2 years of using Calendly, in that, for every time I do a Power Platform podcast episode recording, or a Power 365, which is just with Microsoft stuff, every time I do one of those, it was a constant process of, does this time suit you? Does that, because multi-time zones, does this time suit you? Blah, 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 backwards and forwards. Now, I just sit, here's it, and bang, it's never a juggle. It's just bang, they put it in. They automatically now get a Teams invite. No mucking about. It's simple. I have the record already on when they join. It goes straight to stream. I then can go back. I create my questions out of that. This is a briefing call I do before we go, a couple of weeks before we actually do the recording. It has saved me literally hours and hours. In fact, a couple of years ago, I used to have a lady that did all that. It was her job just to facilitate all that kind of juggle. And that's all gone away now.
For like $49 a month or something, or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. I mean, I just pay it a year in advance. It works.
CALENDLY.com, I believe is how you spell Calendly. Debbie?
Actually, I'll just see if I can find it here, and I'll chuck the link in. Calendly.
There we go. Prashant threw it in.
Oh, there you go. Cheers, Prashant.
So they'll hear us commenting on it much later than they're typing, but because they're typing in real time, right? And our video is delayed.
Yeah, that's valid. There's the actual link to the website.
So one of the things about Calendly, a couple things that I liked. One of the things they had in common with Acuity is they both have a Stripe integration.
Yeah,
which is good. So you can have people, when you have the Stripe integration installed and you put a price on a meeting, when people go to book it before it gets completed, they're asked to basically put in a credit card and pay.
Nice. Do you use that functionality?
I use that for ISV consulting,
Yep.
which I don't promote too heavily, but I was having ISVs call me and just wanting to pick my brain. I'm like, yeah, nah, let's put a price tag on that brain picking. And I'll give you an hour.
Yeah. I hear you.
So I stuck a $500 an hour price tag on chatting with me for an hour about your solution.
Yep.
And I won't say that I don't do 10 of those calls a day, but every 10 days, 2 weeks, one of those will pop up, and so that's fine. And it's a lot more convenient having that baked right in.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. No, definitely a fantastic tool, and I couldn't live without it. It's one of those things that, in a way, I wish that. I know Microsoft has a couple of booking tools and stuff, but none of them run at the level of sophistication of Calendly.
No, Microsoft's bookings, to me, seems like a lawn service or hair salon type of a tool. Their Find Time, I spent more time trying to figure out how to use Find Time than it ever saved. That was a waste. I'd rather just, instead of us all coordinate to find it, I'll just send you my link and you figure it out. You figure it out.
Exactly.
And we both are obviously Teams and Zoom users. And another thing you can do with the Calendly, I think you can probably do it with Acuity too, is you can put in multiple. Well, you can't with Acuity because they don't have Teams, but you can put in multiple choices. So when somebody's creating an appointment, they can pick, well, I want this to be a Zoom meeting because I don't know shit from shit all about Microsoft, or I want a Teams meeting, which is also kind of handy for particularly more on the customer side. One of the things about Zoom with customers was I never knew whether they had Teams or not.
Yep.
And if you don't have, or at least at the time, if you didn't have Teams or didn't have Zoom, it was easier to get on a meeting with Zoom than it was with Teams before.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't know if that's still the case.
Right? How easy it is for a layperson to, if they didn't have Teams installed, do they have to account up? Do they have to create an account, all that kind of stuff to join the Teams meeting? Or can they join straight in as a guest without those details? Prashant, you must know the question to that.
I think they can join straight in on the browser.
Okay, so they don't need a 365 account or anything like that.
I don't think so. I think at the time I looked at it before, because we've had Acuity for a long time and Zoom for a long time, it was much more cumbersome. I think they actually had to install, a downloadable, to do it. But actually, the browser, the browser experience is not bad. I've used the browser experience sometimes just because, I don't know, I was opening a chat on Teams talking to somebody and another meeting popped up, or one of these Microsoft things. The browser experience is not hugely different at all.
So I know you can join by the browser, but that's not my question. My question is, can you join without having Office 365 authentication or active, AAD authentication? Can you join as Tom Jones, not providing any other credentials, and get in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, Prashant's saying it must be a Microsoft account. Oh, okay.
Now we got two different opinions out there from folks of which way it is. Might be something to look into, but
yeah. Because if it doesn't require AAD, then hey, it's a no-brainer because it is simple. I know they don't need the client. Anyhow, I've switched everything over to Teams for all my Calendly stuff, and I'm not using Zoom at all. The only thing I'm using Zoom for now is this meeting that I have with you, and that's purely because we can pipe the Zoom feed straight into YouTube, which
I can't do that with Teams. It's interesting. We need to go back to the episode, which wasn't all that long ago, where you were saying that Zoom is awesome and Teams is crap.
Yeah, hasn't that changed, right?
Yeah, it hasn't been that long either. They really.
Microsoft know how to follow the money.
Oh yeah, I think they've tightened up. Well, I mean, I tell you, there's another example of COVID. Simultaneously, COVID overloaded Zoom.
Yeah.
And caused problems for Zoom, even though their stock really went crazy. They still had challenges. authentication issues, clunky issues. They struggled a little bit through that. Whereas Microsoft, that was just the opportunity they needed to double down, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, when you look at the difference in organization development size of Microsoft versus Zoom, I mean, there's just no comparison. Like we said earlier, if Microsoft wants to aim a gun at something, and they turned all the cannons at Teams during COVID, and I think we're seeing the result of a massive amount of rapid investment in a product.
Yeah.
Highly
But like
focused.
Zoom hasn't suffered by any means for all the attack that went on around security, etc. I was reading an article about the CEO, the owner of Zoom, a Chinese guy. He has gone to, I think he's in the top 10 richest people in the world. That's happened over this year.
Yeah. It's interesting. Another one of those side effects of a virus, right? I mean, I mean, Zoom was a fine product. I'm sure the business was doing well, but
Yeah.
nothing like a virus to take, on one hand, take certain businesses and put them completely out of business,
Yeah.
and other businesses to rocket them up to crazy heights, you know?
Yeah. You know, right back in the day, why I got into Zoom was actually a guy called Andrew Lee.
Yeah.
He got me onto it. He sent me a Zoom meeting one day when I was traveling the world. Didn't have all the tech set up, and it just worked on my iPhone. And I was like, "Wow, this is cool." And so I signed up for an annual account. It just because it just works so easily. Where back then it was still Skype for Business, and that was a complicated tool to get working the best of times. Sometimes, you know.
I think over the years I've probably used all of them. I've used GoToMeeting. Then I used
First, net meeting or meeting before Skype for Business, it was called something else. I forget. Yeah, Debbie, you're right. You have to download from Teams, a stream for Teams, the meeting afterwards. So good if you want a recording to go back to, but it doesn't allow you to live stream, of course.
Or is she talking about the opposite? I think she's saying
Link. There you go. That's what it was called. Jason came through.
Link. That's right.
Yeah.
I used Join Me for a while. You remember Join Me?
Yeah.
Yep. That was another one that I have no idea how any of these. You know, once you land on one, you know, you don't really change it that much. You know, so you lose track of what happened to the others.
Yeah. Look at that. Zoom stock went from 100 in April to 400 since April.
Yeah.
But
talk about
same with Apple. All of these big tech companies have just gone through the roof. Did you see a couple of years ago Microsoft dumped a data center in the ocean up in Scotland?
Yeah, I remember that.
They've just pulled it out. They've just pulled it out of the ocean.
Given up on that plan, or
huh?
Are they giving up on the idea, or
no? What they've found is that the failure rate on the hardware and the fact that because that capsule was devoid of oxygen, right? It was totally sealed, dropped to the ocean. The failure rate of hardware has plummeted in that capsule because there's no, oxygen ultimately corrodes, right? And so the failure rate on CPUs or things like that increases. And so The Verge have just done a whole write-up on it. And there's a great video actually of it being pulled out of the ocean. Well worth a look to see, how things have advanced in this area.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to solve a lot of problems when you think about it for a data center, because I know another one of the big challenges for data centers is cooling, right?
Yeah.
And, drop it in the ocean. Yeah, it's got to be cooler than sitting out in the desert somewhere or wherever the hell it could be.
Exactly. But they seem to, singing the praises of it. So that's weird. It's it won't allow me to drop the link in because the URL string is too long from The Verge because of all the tracking codes and crap on the end of it. Hang on.
Lorenz is letting us know that it's 1/8 of the failure rate to ordinary data centers. So that's, there you go. Yeah, that's got to say something about where they might be investing in the future. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's got to cost more to build and put something in the ocean than it does to do on land. Maybe it doesn't. Hell, I don't know. Well,
the thing is, right, it's pretty expensive to put data centers in and stuff in anywhere.
Yeah, it's not cheap, a cheap proposition.
But it's a good video to watch, and interesting Microsoft investing in the space. Now, I don't know if another thing in the news that I found interesting, and this is in the news from our fellow MVP, Guido. He, he posts out there, and I just put a link to the web version of it, this newsletter, which he does each week, which he compiles. He's done obviously 146 of them there. But the #1 article this week, did you see that?
I did not until I just opened the link.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank
Steve
you,
has a chat with Toby Bowers, #1. You made #1 on his list this week.
Yeah. Thank you, Guido. Let's see who else is there to see if it's worthwhile company.
Well, I often make the podcast list on his.
Yeah.
Haven't recently. I haven't been doing enough Microsoft, folks. He particularly likes interviews I do with Microsoft. One second. I just have to mute out. Sorry, I just muted out there.
Yeah, no problem.
I just
swear at the gardener or something.
No, I got a tradesman here doing some work, and so I couldn't just jump up from the desk. So, so yeah, I mean, it's worth signing up to Guido's weekly list there, because it does do a condensing of all the content out there. And I think that, and if you're also on MS Dynamics World, you combine those two, you've really got a good consolidated view of everything that's going on. And one of the other things that caught my attention this week was, we've talked a bit about Hayden Stafford. Yeah. And Hayden Stafford was global. He was the corporate vice president of sales for Microsoft Dynamics. Sorry, not for Microsoft Business Applications. Yep. And so they've announced here this week I've just put the link there to the guy announcing he's taking over that role.
I was curious about that because when I talked to Toby, what was that, 10 days ago or something like that, it didn't sound like they were ready to announce anybody. I didn't even, it sounded like they had somebody, but I don't know if I'm sure it's been churning a little bit. I'm sure he knew at the time who they were thinking about.
But. Oh yeah, so this is just an internal, he was already a corporate vice president of EMEA, I think it was. Might have got that wrong actually. So he is.
Well, it shows even in the link that you sent, Vice President, Microsoft Corporation President, Microsoft Western Europe.
That's it. That's what he was. Western Europe is what he had. He's now moving back to, well, I say back, assuming that he must have been in Seattle at some point. He's moving to America though, back into Seattle to take over this role, is the way I read the article. And of course, it's caused a reshuffle. The head of Microsoft in the United Kingdom is taking over his role, and a new lady is moving in to become the manager of Microsoft UK, Cindy Rose. So,
so where does it say?
Sorry, Cindy Rose is moving to the European role.
Does it say anything specific in here about him taking over the sales position?
So. He definitely is. Once again, I can't say how I know that, but I did hear from a back channel that he is the new Hayden Stafford.
Okay. Yeah, because it's not clear in this particular article.
And even the way you read this, you think he's the head of Microsoft Biz Apps. And of course, we know it's a 3-part, it's never one person that's ahead of these things. We know Alyssa Taylor owns the marketing side of things. How do you say his name?
I'm going to guess Vahe.
Vahe?
That'd be what I would guess, Vahe.
I assume it's French, right? Might be wrong. It might be Spanish.
Yeah, I don't know, or Norwegian or something. I don't think it's.
I'm just going to have a look at his LinkedIn profile.
Yeah.
Let's go down to where he came from, his education. The University of Chicago is where he did France. France. He did his master's. Well, he did his master's degree in France, and and his first job. Let's see, his first job. He's been in Texas Instruments. Where else has he been? Microsoft for 10 years. Over 10 years at Microsoft.
CVP is a pretty high up role in Microsoft.
Yeah.
That's not vice president of business applications. That's corporate vice president, and that's a whole nother strata of VP. So he's a pretty high ranking guy. I can't remember and I know Phillips is president of the business applications group, but is he a CVP?
I thought he was a CVP.
Okay,
Because your friend Googs, he was a CVP, right?
Yeah, he was a CVP for a long time.
And why I know that is because he corrected me when I said his title.
But I remember thinking at the time that his title outranked Phillips, who is now going to report into.
Okay.
I think we even talked about that his title outranked James Phillips' title at the time that he was shifted over to report into him.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. But this guy, he's head of sales.
This guy might even be, well, if you've heard, that he's replacing Phillips, then we know, when he's replacing Stafford, then we know where he sits in the org.
Yeah, the question was asked, is this Hayden's replacement? And the insider said, yes, it is.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I guess we're going to have to get to know this guy.
Yeah.
I looking at his picture at the bottom, he looks familiar. Like I've seen him somewhere.
He's definitely been obviously around the Microsoft traps, right? As in he's over 10, 11 years now inside the org.
Wow, almost 500 comments on his announcement there.
Yeah. I think it's a big deal because, that interview I did with Hayden at the start of the year showed how much money they're throwing at the sales part of BizApps. And
not enough money to keep Hayden.
No, but I think my understanding, and this is from the podcast I did with Alyssa, is that there are multiple factors why the role for Hayden was important. One was it was where he lived, right? So a massive, like you didn't have to spend time in Seattle, to my understanding. And it played, there are a couple of things that it played really nicely to his skill sets and what he was doing. I think Hayden did a massive job. And, some people are builders and some people are kind of like cut new ground. This is why I find it interesting where we're at now. We're 3 years into James Phillips' tenure, and even folks like Charles Lamanna and things like that. And you've had all this massive buildup of excitement and stuff happen over this time. And then it's like, it's business as normal. And like, shit, I'm not into this, Everyone's not as excited with me anymore. Everyone's not as buzzed about what I'm doing. And some people, cut new ground. Some people like to maintain, and they're not always the same person.
Yeah, I think part of what's happened also over those last 3 years is, launching and change has become the new normal. So it was exciting because it was new, but now it's not new anymore. I mean, the same motion that they did 3 years ago is not as exciting as it was when they did it 3 years ago, because we came off such a stagnant, a stagnant organization. So they kind of raised the bar. Now that bar's normal.
Yeah. 3 years ago, we heard this constant thing. Oh, there's too much change. It's happening all the time. Nobody says that anymore. It's just the norm.
I do. ISVs say that because, they have to continuously go crack open their solutions every time you turn around. It's one thing when a customer's paying you to go in and crack open their environment and update things. Another thing when it's on your own dime, you have to continuously go in and crack that stuff open.
True.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the first comment on his post is from Hayden. So
yeah. Oh, by the way, I don't know if Patty is. Patty, are you on the call today? I don't know if Patty's on the call. Haven't seen mention, but this arrived yesterday from Patty, all the way in Scotland.
Oh, very nice.
PowerApp Nights. What's that? virtualpowergroup.co.uk. And so this on-night training classes. Look at that.
Very nice.
Look at this.
Well, I assume that he's not on the call, or he would have probably mentioned it.
Even got my name on the back of it.
Is that a custom shirt for you or they put your name on the back of all of them?
They put my name on the back of all of them. I thought that was pretty nice of them. And just arrived yesterday. So I thought I'd wear that on the call today.
Is that an event that's already happened or one that's coming up?
No, so this is an ongoing thing. So one of the things he launched was, a lot of people, this is even pre-COVID, is a lot of working parents and stuff can't get out to user groups and meet up, but they want to keep doing training. So these are kind of like night classes for PowerApps.
Oh, very cool.
So, you get on with a bunch of people, you grow to know them over time and you learn together.
Very cool idea.
Look at that. John said he did a good session last night. A bloody good idea, right? As in, I'm liking the new things. Oh, a couple other things just before we wrap. I see we're getting low on time. You've made your product all free recently. I see all your rapid start products. You haven't open sourced them, but you've made them free, which is interesting times. And you were saying that you did a lot of that based on what you saw with WordPress. And I just thought I'd drop into the view there that link to Theme Forest, which is a WordPress theme. And I've used this for over 10 years, this theme on all the various sites I've built. Look at that. $60 is your regular license. And if you scroll down, you can see 621,000 sales. Now, if I calculate that out, that's it's $37 million over that time for people that upgrade from the free to the purchase version.
Yeah, that's my plan. That's my plan. 37 million. That's my plan.
I think you're on a good path there. The other last couple of things that I just thought about in closing was what was the big virtual event that just happened last week?
Dynamic Con or Dynamics Con.
So
yeah, that one kind of snuck up on me because I guess it's, but it sounds like it was huge and hugely successful, and all the speakers
and they've posted all the videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
So pretty solid, virtually run. It's obviously shown a new way. I got an email last week or so inviting me to have a meeting with the new CEO of Dynamic Communities. And, they've released their new pricing structure and whatnot. But, I've not taken them up on the offer. And I know they've sent the email to a bunch of other people because he wants to get a feel of the community. I'm like, mate, just go read some of the tweets and posts out there. I think you'll get a good feel for what the community thinks of how things have gone.
Yeah.
But I'm at this stage, I'm not probably going to engage because I think
they didn't do what you told them last time.
Hey,
they didn't do what you told them last time. So
well, the last 3 times, right?
So they're kind of paying a price.
They listen and then they think you're fucking crazy. Like, this is not going to be the new norm. I remember when I told them, man, pivot quickly, like cancel all your in-person events, make this the nah. They were like, nah, you're silly. Those people that told me I was silly have all lost their jobs.
As they were swirling down the toilet, they were saying that.
They've all lost their jobs. And so I'm like, I'll give advice when it gets listened to and or they give a good justification not to. But when it's just ignorance and head buried in the sand.
That's not how we've always done it, Mark, but that's not how we've always done it.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of ISV or of Dynamics Communities, before we end up here, Tony Stein has popped up at Microsoft working on the Azure customer success team.
Wow.
So he's picked up a job at the mothership.
Yeah, he was formerly from Microsoft.
Yeah, well, it looks like he did his stint for quite a while with Dynamics Communities running CRM UG, and now has come back to the fold.
Yeah.
So just if anybody's curious about what's going on with Tony.
Yeah, interesting times.
It is interesting times. And speaking of interesting times, our time is up.
It is up. I've got a contractor here doing some digging outside, so I better go see what he's up to.
I've got a beer sitting in the fridge waiting for me, so I'm going to go see what that's up to.
I've got a few hours of work to get done.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.